Hey guys, it's Lane with Tim's Nation. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the Iron Hands list I'm taking into G-Day's ad mech today. Now, why Iron Hands, you may ask? Well, if you follow the channel, you know I played in a tournament this past weekend in Pittsburgh, and it was a 50-player tournament, and out of those 50 players, I think 12, 13 of them had some kind of Space Marines in the Iron Hands detachment. So it's apparently very big right now. In the local area, there are some people that play Marines and play the Iron Hands, the Iron Storm Spearhead. And they may have that in different Space Marine armies. Sometimes it's Iron Hands. Sometimes it's Black Templars just to get those extra meltas on the tanks. Sometimes it's Dark Angels, so they get the Dark Shroud, or maybe Azrael for free command points. There's even Space Wolves running Iron Storm Spearhead. So obviously it's big in the meta, but going to this tournament, I was not prepared for the fact that of the 5 games I played, 3 of them were against Iron Storm Spearhead of some sort. So I have to do a separate video if you want to check out and see how my tournament went. We can take a look at that, and we'll kind of talk through how the games went. But today I'm going to talk about the Iron Storm list I'm bringing. It's a big part of the meta. DJ's trying to prep his ad mech to make them stronger competitively. And I really think the Iron Storm Spearhead Marines of some sport are going to be definitely stack checks. A lot of people have Marines. A lot of people have Marine vehicles. It's fun to play a whole bunch of tanks and vehicles in your list, a bunch of dreadnoughts. What's more fun than that? There have definitely been times in the overall 40K meta over the last couple editions where vehicles have been bad. So if there's a detachment that makes a bunch of Space Marine vehicles good, people should play it. It should be a lot of fun. But if you are playing 40K, you want to play competitively, you're going to play some tournaments, you should probably be familiar with the Iron Storm Spearhead, because there's certainly some things that it can do very, very well. Some things it doesn't do as well. But we'll get into the list that I'm running today and talk about the different synergies and things we want to see working, different strats we want to see pop off. So let's get to the list and talk about it. Okay, so the list, it's Iron Hands, but it's not really Iron Hands. It's actually Dark Angels in the Iron Storm Spearhead. The only thing that makes this Dark Angels is the fact that I am taking Azrael. So Azrael is a character, and Chapter Master Azrael, and he can lead a squad. In my army, he's going to be leading 5 Assault Intercessors just for some protection so he doesn't disappear. Azrael gives his unit sustained on their attacks. He also gives them a 4-up embalm, but the big reason people are taking him in the Iron Storm Spearhead is because he gives you a command point every turn. Bonus command point every single turn. Iron Storm Spearhead has some extremely strong stratagems. So him being able to give you an extra command point is going to make a big deal, make a big difference. Now, the actual Iron Storm rule is very simple. They just get to reroll 1 hit roll or wound roll or damage roll. Or is the operative word here. 1 hit, wound, or damage roll. Each time that a unit attacks. Now, that's great because you can use it for shooting, you can use it for fighting. And when you have Tech Marines giving out +1s to hit, it means a lot of times these tanks are hitting on 2s, and you don't need to be shooting your Oath of Moment target because you're going to be getting those hits. And with a free reroll, a lot of times you hit with 100% of your shots. So anyways, back to the actual list here. As I said, Dark Angels, their only reason is because Azrael is here. A lot of people who are running Iron Hands are taking the Dark Shroud. So the Dark Shroud is a speeder that gives all Adeptus Astartes units within 6 inches stealth and gives them cover, the benefit of cover at all time. It's like 115 points, and you can tell how something like that would make a huge effect on the durability of an army by making everything -1 to hit and giving it cover. It's a huge durability boost. Now, I don't have that here today. Like I said, we just have Azrael as the only representative of the Dark Angels. So the rest of the list is 3 Tech Marines for the rest of our characters here. I've got Iron Father Pharaoh's model here, but he's just being a regular Tech Marine today. So he's not the actual Pharaoh's character. I'm not using Pharaoh's data sheet. We're just using 3 regular Tech Marines. One of them does have the Target Augury Web. That is the enhancement that gives all vehicles within 6 inches lethal hits. So lethal hits definitely gets you a lot more efficiency out of things that you want to be hitting hard. Another Tech Marine is going to have the Master of Machine War. This is the one that lets all vehicles advance and shoot. So it gives you the ability to advance and shoot with your vehicles within 6 inches of him. This just gives an extra um, a boost to your mobility, which can be a big deal. Sometimes your tanks, especially your 8-inch move dreadnoughts, sometimes they have trouble getting eyes on targets for shooting. It makes it a lot easier when they can roll those advanced rolls and get around terrain a little bit better, move into better position, sometimes denying your opponent cover by getting better positioning. So it makes a huge deal with these guys. So that's it. 3 Tech Marines. The Tech Marines that you know in their command phase, you pick a vehicle within 3 inches and they give it +1 to hit and they heal D3 wounds on it. So the Tech Marines are helpful for vehicles, making them better at shooting and fighting. There's +1 to hit in shooting and fighting. In 9th edition, it was just shooting. So it's definitely a big boon here. And they're only 55 points for a Tech Marine. So it is actually a pretty good deal. Their other special rule is if a vehicle dies within 12 inches of one of their vehicles, one of their friendly vehicles, then they get extra angry. And they get extra attacks with their power axe, making them actually pretty decent in combat too. And other fun facts is they all have a forged bolter, basically a heavy bolter that doesn't have sustained fire. And they're 2-up armor, so they are kind of durable. They are lone operative as long as they're within 3 inches of a vehicle, so you do have to keep them close to vehicles. They can get endangered, obviously, if enemies get closer or if they pop the one vehicle that's near them, and then they can be get shot at that point because they lose their lone op status when they're not within 3 inches of a vehicle. But because of all their auras, I'm going to be making an effort to keep them very close to at least multiple vehicles for most of the game. That's it for characters. We've got 2 squads of infantry. One is Assault Intercessors. It's a 5-man squad of Assault Intercessors. Assault Intercessors, the guys that run around, their special rule is they reroll 1s to wound. And if the target, their attacks is on an objective, they reroll all their wounds in close combat. But other than that, each one just gets Strength 4, Strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage chainsword attacks. The real reason I have them here is just to keep Azrael protected, because he gives them a 4-up invuln, and that durability will keep him alive. Now DJ has some movement shenanigans with certain things infiltrating and certain units being able to deep strike. I don't want to leave Azrael out in the open, and then some tracks he just burning him off and killing away my CP generation. So they're here to protect him, and obviously as we get later into the game, they can come out and do a little bit of damage. Azrael himself fights pretty well, so we'll see if they get to play and mix it up today. The other squad I have, these guys aren't WYSIWYG, but I have Assault Intercessors with jump packs. I don't have the actual Assault Intercessor with jump pack models, so I'm just using some of my old Death Watch veterans with jump packs that used to join squads. So these guys are all equipped with chain swords. 2 of them have plasma pistols. For some reason, the sergeant can have a plasma pistol, and another guy can have a plasma pistol. And then the sergeant also has a power fist. They're a little special ability. Obviously, with the jump packs, they can move 12 inches, and their special abilities when they complete a charge. For every model that gets an engagement range, you roll a d6 on a 4-up that does a mortal wound to the target. So they can. They're actually pretty good at sniping out characters. If you have a character that's alone and not part of a unit, just the fact that they can charge in, slap, do a few mortal wounds, and then get a bunch of chainsword attacks on top of that. I mean, sometimes they can shred through a character or defeat a skirmish unit of some type. You know, if they get to shoot, charge, do a few mortals on the charge, and then do their attacks, they might pick up a scout squad or something along those lines. So they're good skirmishing units. They move really quick. And they can score your primaries and secondaries as well. Now, this is Ironstorm, guys. So let's talk about some vehicles. To start off, this past weekend, as I said, I played 3 different Iron Hands lists in a 5-round tournament. So I had, in every single one of them, they had 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts with the Macroplasma gun. The Macroplasma... Why am I forgetting what the name of it is? The heavy macroplasma, a macroplasma incinerator. So one of these guys is not WYSIWYG. I've magnetized 2 of my Redemptors, but one of them still has the heavy onslaught Gatling cannon. We're using the Gatling cannon as a plasma today. So 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Now Redemptors, their special rule is that they reduce damage by 1. So whenever they take damage, they reduce by 1, which is very strong. They also have 2-up armor, so they're pretty durable. They have a decent punching attack. And those macroplasma incinerators, man, it's just, they can get a lot of shots. They did a lot of work to me this weekend because they're D6 plus 1 blast. So if you're shooting a 10-man squad, you're going to get D6 plus 3. And they are, when they overcharge, they're strength 9, AP 4, flat 3 damage. They just shred through infantry. Now with the Iron Storm, they benefit from a couple things. First of all, Iron Storm Spearhead has the ability to shoot back. If one of your vehicles is brought below half strength by enemy attacks, you can spend 1 CP and shoot back at that enemy unit. Those plasmas do a lot of work into just about anything, but being able to shoot back with a Redemptor is very strong. They also have the ability to function at top bracket for 1 CP. They can also, when they shoot in your own shooting phase, you can use Mercy's weakness stratagem, which allows you to basically get sustained on 5s if you're shooting at a unit that's below full strength in your vehicle. So sustained on 5s, and if you have that Tech Marine near you that gives you the lethal hits aura, the criticals are triggering on 5. So you get sustained and lethals on 5s. So if you're hitting on 2s from the Tech Marine buff and you're rolling, shooting into your oath target, you can just fish for those 5s and 6s and get a bunch of sustain to do a ton of damage. Multiple times this past weekend, one of these Redemptors with that Mercy and weakness would just pick up an entire squad, an entire 10-man squad of my Stern Guard, because the Stern Guard have no invuln. The AP4 cuts right through them. The 3-up, the flat 3 damage just shreds them. So they definitely have some power in here. Now, obviously, when those macroplasmas are charged up to strength 9, they don't do as much work in the T10 vehicles because they're going to be wounding on 5s. But again, if you pop off Mercy's weakness and you're doing crits on 5s and you got those lethal hits, you're going to get some lethal hits out of them as well. So, yeah, they were super effective. Their durability just means they stick around a lot longer. They're harder to kill. And that means if they're difficult to kill, you get to use those shoot back stratagems a lot more often. So 3 Redemptor Dreads. We got one of the Ballistus Dreads. His special ability is anytime he shoots something that's not below half strength, he can reroll the hit roll. And he's got 2 las cannon shots and 2 missile shots, 2 crack missile shots or frag missile shots. Again, he's got 2-up armor as well. So a nice little durability. That ability to reroll his hits is nice because he doesn't need to shoot at the oath target. And because you're Iron Hands, you get 1 wound reroll, which just means he's got a lot of efficiency. He's only at 140 points. But yeah, I had the points to squeeze him in here, so that's what we chose. See if he gets to do some work today, maybe knock down a Dragoon or maybe put some damage onto an on a Dragoon Crawler. Next, we've got 2 of the Gladiator Reapers. The Gladiator Reaper tanks have a twin-linked heavy onslaught Gatling cannon as their main weapon. That's 12 shots, strength 6, AP 0, 1 damage. So they do have dev wounds, and they're twin-linked, so they reroll all their wounds. Now, anytime they shoot at an infantry unit, they get sustained 2 on their 6s. So 6s to hit becomes sustained 2. Again, we're going to talk about that stratagem, Mercy's weakness, where sustained procs on 5s, if it's a vehicle that you're using it on, and they're shooting at something that's taking some damage, is below full strength. So you can imagine this twin-link Gatling cannon, if it's re-rolling all its hits, and it's procking sustained 2 on 5-ups when it's shooting an infantry unit, it can get 12 shots and turn into 20, 22 hits. And then those strength 6 guns are twin-linked with dev wounds. So you're going to get some dev wounds. You're going to get a bunch of wounds. And so they're great for chewing through infantry squads. It also has 8 bolter shots that are AP1, strength 4, but rapid fire. So when you're within 12 inches, they get 16 bolter shots. It's got a stubber on it. It's got a missile pod. So it does a fair amount of damage into infantry, obviously. But even into heavier targets, the fact that it does dev wounds and it's twin-linked is still going to fish for, even if you're just shooting and maybe get 7 or 8 hits, even if you're not shooting your oath target, you'll probably pick up 3 dev wounds just from the full rerolls to wound. So they can put some hurt onto harder targets as well, but obviously great for just chewing through the infantry. And then finally, we've got 2 repulsor executioners. I have been using these in my dev watch for a while, but the repulsor executioners just have a big old heavy laser destroyer on top. 2 shots, strength 16, AP 4, D6 plus 4 damage. So they hurt real good. Their special rule is if they shoot something that's below half strength, I believe, below half strength, then they I get +1 to hit. So they're great for finishing things off. They've got a ton of shots because they've got a 12-shot heavy onslaught Gatling cannon. They have a defensive array that's got 10 shots. They've got twin-linked heavy bolters. They've got 2 different stubbers. They've got the missile pod. A ton of shots. These will be useful. Again, this nice subject for Mercy's weakness. You have so many shots that you're going to proc off some, and you get some 5-up sustains and lethals as well if the lethal hits or is near you. So that, my friends, is the list. Okay, so that is our Iron Hands. I'm just going to say Iron Hands. I know it's Dark Angels, Ironstorm Spearhead, but the only Dark Angels thing is Azrael. So we're just saying Iron Hands. But now a lot of the lists you see with Iron Hands run a variety of tanks. There's a variety of planet, but the Redemptors are pretty common because they're so durable with reducing damage and the 2-up armor that they are a great subject for the return fire strat. I forget what it's called, but I'll definitely mention it in the game because I'll be using that strat quite a bit. They take damage, they get down below half, and they get to shoot back whatever shot them. Now, in this past weekend, and again, in my tournament breakdown video, we'll talk about this. These things are so effective at shooting back. My opponents very consistently rolled high on their number of shots with the macroplasma. I had, as I mentioned, one time they picked up an entire 10-man Sternguard squad on the shoot back. I had another game where I dropped in my Eradicators from Deep Strike, failed to kill the Redemptor Dreadnought, and just shot back and killed all 6 Eradicators for 1 CP. Just aced them. It was brutal. Again, if they've been touched by a Tech Marine, they're going to be hitting on 2s. And then the Ironstorm Spearhead, you just re-roll 1 hit wound or roll. So a lot of times he spent 1 CP, shot back at my Eradicators, rolled a 6 a number of shots. He overcharged it, so it was AP 4. It was D6 plus 1 for blast because there's 6 Eradicators, 8 shots. Hitting on 2s, they all hit. Most of them wounded, AP 4, no saves on my boys, and they were just all gone. It was brutal. I know that now DJ's AdMech have some invulns, so it's actually going to be less effective shooting into big bricks of the AdMech because the Rangers have, I believe, 5-up invulns. I'll double check that when we actually get into the game. So they actually have some defense, where my Marines had no invulns, so no defense against that AP4 stuff. But again, there's a lot of other guns on the Redemptors as well. There's Storm Bolters, there's a Missile Pod, there's a 8-shot Onslaught Gatling Cannon. So they do put out a lot of shots when they shoot in the regular shooting phase, and of course, using that shoot back strat. And that's one of the big things with Azrael in there. You can obviously shoot back. You can use Mercy's weakness every turn. Armor Contempt is really strong on things that have a 2-up save. Now, as far as what I saw, there, like I said, there were a variety of lists. Most of them had 3 Redemptors. Some of them had 1 or 2 of the Storm Ravens, because the Storm Ravens are strong. They reduce damage by 1, so they're very durable as well. Pair that, if you're doing Dark Angel Iron Hands, with the Dark Shroud, making them -1 hit and get cover. It just gives them an added buff of durability. Definitely, I saw some people, played a couple people that were going with as many tanks as possible. If I had more models, I probably would take out the Repulsor Executioners because they're 220 points, replace those with 2 Lancers because they're 170 points, I believe, and squeeze in a few more things. I definitely had people that were playing with 10 vehicles. They would have Predators, only 130 points. Those autocannon Predators do pretty well, and a lot of times the last cannons on them are strong just because with Iron Hands, you get a free reroll. So if you shoot an Oath target, reroll the hit, and one of those last cannons gets a free reroll, they can be very effective. It just buffs up their efficiency a little bit. And a lot of the things is, like when you play a unit that has a character attached to that, that character buffs the unit. Well, once you kill the unit, the buff from that character is useless. With Iron Hands, the buffs come from the Tech Marines and our auras. And the Tech Marines give out buffs, the +1 to hit and the repairs. So you can kill a vehicle that's near a Tech Marine, and then the Tech Marine just moves over to another vehicle, and the other vehicle benefits from its aura, and it benefits from its +1 to hit and that sort of thing. So the buffs on the Iron Hands stay throughout most of the game unless you actually get in there and kill the Tech Marines. Now, and that means, so maybe the buffs at the beginning of the game on your big tanks, your dreadnoughts, that sort of thing. As the dreadnoughts die, Tech Marines move around and buff the other units. For example, like Predators. Suddenly Predators become better when they've got lethal hits, or Mercy's Weakness pairing that and getting sustained and lethals on 5s. They get a fair number of shots. So it really adds up over the long term of the game. Predators just on its own is not super impressive, but you give it that free reroll and they give it the buff from the Tech Marine, and suddenly it's doing a lot better than it was before. So the efficiency stays with the army, even if you kill a bunch of it. And that's what I experienced this past weekend with my Death Watch. Yeah, I can kill a bunch of stuff, and the Tech Marines just go around and buff the other units. So ideally, if I had more models, I only have 2 of the Gladiator bases. I have different turrets, so I can run them as Lancers or as the Reapers. I need to build a couple more of those so I can just have more of them. Like I said, I prefer to have just more bodies in the field. Now, what I've noticed a few people struggle with the Ironstorm Spearhead is that a lot of times people just take too many vehicles and don't have enough scoring units. And a lot of times, a lot of the Ironstorm Spearhead armies just stayed in the mid tables. There were a couple in the top 10. One was a Space Wolves one, another Space Marine Ironstorm or Iron Hands one. But for the fact that there were 12 or 13 Ironstorm detachments, only maybe 2, I think, made it into the top 10, means that they were kind of in the mid-table, causing problems for certain armies, but they didn't always score well enough to get up the top. I think the reason is a lot of people take too many tanks and not enough units to scoring. And a couple of my Iron Hands matchups, even ones I lost, my opponents were really struggling on secondaries. So you have to make sure you play the secondary game really smart. It might mean taking fewer tanks, taking smaller tanks that are fewer points, and adding things in like your Calidus, your Scout Squads, Assault Intercessors, and get around and do activity or do actions for you and score you some points that way. Anyways, my hopes today is just to show off the strats and potential power of the list. Not sure, again, I only have really 2, just really 1 squad of Assault Intercessors with jump packs that can go around and do little action type activities. So I don't expect to see a really high secondary score unless maybe I take fixed secondaries and just try to kill things. Don't tell DJ about that. But that's definitely a possibility. We'll see what happens in the actual game once I take a look at this list. But I want to see that Mercy's Weakness popping off. I want to do it in a couple different places. I want to do it on a Redemptor Dreadnought, and with all his macroplasmas getting lethals and sustained on 5s, and shooting an oath target, so getting rerolls and just fishing for that extra lethal and extra sustained. Into a harder target or elite infantry of some kind. And I also want to do that same Mercy's Weakness strat on Gladiator Reaper, shooting it into an infantry unit where we will get sustained 2s on 5-ups to see if we can really make that cook. Other than that, it's going to be the shootback strat, with the name of which I forget, but I definitely want to look it up because I'm going to be planning to use that this game. But there are other stratagems that are really strong too. I've got 2 Repulsor Executioners. When those things die and they blow up, it's D6 mortals, and they're big models, so they cover a large area. I have a strat that lets me auto-explode for 1 CP. That'll be a lot of fun to see if we can get that to pop off. Of course, I want to make sure that none of my guys are near it. I don't want to see that thing blow up. And other than that, it'll be an interesting matchup between the Dragoons and the Redemptor Dreadnoughts. The Dragoons are anti-walker 2-up, so they'll get to wound my Redemptors pretty easily when they charge them. But Redemptors have a 2-up save, reduced damage by 1, so it's going to be hard for them to get enough damage through to actually make a difference. And the counterpunch, Redemptors only have 5 attacks, so occasionally they can miss. And those Dragoons have invulns as well. And they can pop off a Feel No Pain as well, can make them really hard to kill. So that'll be an interesting matchup to see how that fares between those 2. So follow me over to the battle report, and we'll see how it goes. All right, see you there, guys.